I want folks to sit back and look at what's this world we've been dropped into. Some of us have created our own mess. Some of us were born into it. But all right, what do I have to do to show my body we're all right now? We're all right. But here's all imposter syndrome is the fear that other people are judging you as harshly as you judge yourself. And that's worth being well, right? Like that's being able to look in the mirror and say, nah, I'm worth like figuring out how to have a good day. I'm worth that.
I'm your host, Jason Raznick, founder of Benzinga, a leading platform in the financial world with the mission to level the playing field for individual investors. And this is the Raz Report podcast, where we share inspiring stories, expert advice, and exclusive perspectives to keep you ahead of the ever-changing world of investments and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into the show. Welcome to this edition of the Raz Report. I'm excited to have an anxiety expert, John Delony, who's written many books: Own Your Past, Change Your Future, Refine Anxiety. I'm going to figure out how he writes all these books. And he has a new book that just came out, Building a Non-Anxious Life. First of all, how do you have time to write all these books? How do you do it?
I don't have very many friends, man.
Do you have a set time that you write, or is it like just you'll randomly go to the computer and start writing?
No, I'm always noodling on something, and then I've got a pretty audacious publishing wing here where I work, and so they're pretty tough on me to get it out, so it's good.
The publisher.
Yeah. And then I'll lock myself in a hotel for a few weeks, and we'll crank it out, and we'll get it going.
Why do you lock yourself in a hotel versus at home?
I learned with the first couple of books that being at home, my wife says that I am with the family, but I am not there. So I'm there in body, but in spirit, I'm gone. And I can be pretty tough to be around, and a lot of early mornings and late nights. And so it's best if I just go get knocked out. So
got it. Now, I am pumped to have you on because anxiety, I think, is something that is probably so large to so many people in this world, and it's not talked about the way it should be in terms of mental health and just everything. Anxiety, I think, leads to depression, leads to other things, and you're an expert on anxiety. So my first question to you, John, is, do you ever get anxiety?
Oh man, I've been buried before, and I think that kind of started my conversation and my question about it. I worked in universities for 20 years, working alongside students who were struggling, and I always thought anxiety was something happened to them. And when I ignored my body long enough, it finally said, hey, I quit. And I found myself driving a couple hours away to a buddy who's a physician, and I said, hey, something's wrong with me. And that started me going down a rabbit hole to try to figure out what's going on neurologically and physiologically and emotionally and relationally. What's the deal here, man? How does someone like me, who's got everything, I got a great wife, I got healthy kids, I got a great job, how do I get buried? And if it's happening to me, it's happening to other folks. And what happened to all of us all of a sudden? Why did everyone get anxious all of a sudden? And that question haunted me for about a decade until we kind of set it down and came up with a game plan.
When it haunted you, John, for a decade, were you reading books to figure out, hey, why is this doing it? You have a great family, you have kids, you have some money, whatever. Was it something that you were reading about, researching?
I mean, I ended up getting a second PhD. I had a PhD in education. I ended up getting a second PhD in counseling. And that meant I was doing the academic work, but I was also sitting with hurting people, and I was also walking alongside people behind closed doors. And so and dealing with my own stuff. And so I think that three-legged stool of, do you know what you're talking about? And are you walking alongside a whole bunch of other people? And do you have your own experience? It took several years to kind of manifest itself.
So you wrote this book, Building a Non-Anxious Life. Okay. Great title. You map out 6 daily choices in your book: reality, connection, freedom, mindfulness, health, and healing, belief. What do you mean by belief?
So if I back up, I try to reverse engineer. If I was to sit down with somebody and say, hey, if anxiety is simply an alarm system that your body has detected something in the environment that you're not all right, you're probably not safe. Or maybe you are, but it's detected you're not. What are the things that set that alarm off? And then how do you deal with that? And most of us don't want to go through a masterclass, so we don't have time to go through a med school course on dopamine and adrenaline and yada yada. So if I could distill it down to somebody who doesn't read very many books and actually help them in their day-to-day life, what would that look like? And so it was these 6 choices. One of them is this idea that if you look at the major psychological theories of the last couple hundred years, the goal is this thing called self-actualization, where you are the center of the universe. And if you get all these other things, then you can finally be the master of your world. And I think if we look existentially around, you and I, we have everything. We have electricity. We can push a button on our phone and food just shows up. We have running water in our house. We got everything. We are self-actualized. And we're finding out in real time our bodies were never designed to hold the weight of the universe. And so whether it's a 12-step program, whether it's faith traditions throughout all of human history, or it's just simple evolutionary psychology, for all of human history, people have walked outside of their tent and looked up to the sky and said, "Dear God or gods, please rain, because if it doesn't rain, my family dies." And suddenly over the last couple hundred years, we got real arrogant. And so this idea of choosing belief is simply saying you are not the center of the universe. And the quicker you take a knee and plug into something bigger than you. My family, we are like the Delony house. We're Christian. I'm not subscribing to in this book that you have to believe in a certain thing, but you do have to believe that something bigger than you is at play and that you are in service to it, not the other way around. Or your body will sound the alarms always.
Okay. So to get to specialize in this area, which is awesome, there are so many people that go through anxious times where your heart is beating a mile a minute. You either wake up at 3 a.m. and you have that like feeling, that anxious thing. And I guess, do you know what I'm talking about?
Dude, my heart's beating a little bit faster with you just talking about it, right? Yeah, I've been there, man.
So what do you do then?
I think there's two different paths. One is like, what do you do in that moment? And there's some tips and tricks on what to do when you wake up at 3 a.m., right? And those are interesting, and you can Google those, and there's a million of them, right? I'm way more interested in what I would call the deeper question, which is this. If for all of human history, sleep, your body has decided that sleep is something that is radically important to the preservation of the human body. If your body keeps waking you up, violating this crucially important thing at 3 a.m. every night, I'm way more interested in the question, what is your body noticing or detecting in your environment that it feels like it has to wake you up at 3 a.m. every morning to get your attention? Let's solve for that. And then sleep will take care of itself, right? So what in your world, what in your life, whether it's relationships, whether it's finances, whether it is actual safety and security and abuse, like what is going on in your world that your brain has recognized you are all alone? All you have is you. You're running defense, you're running offense, you're taking care of the kids, you got to provide, you got to do everything. I'm going to wake you up because sleep is not safe right now. Let's solve that problem, man. And this is an N equals 1, but I found when I dealt with the environment stuff, man, I can't stay awake past 9 o'clock anymore. I've turned into an old man all of a sudden.
So when you say you dealt with the environment stuff, you're talking about things that you're worrying about?
Here's a simple one. Your body, the nerd word in the psychological literature is agency or autonomy. Your body knows. I don't care how good of a deal you got. I don't care what your interest rate is. Your body knows if you owe money to a mortgage company or to a car finance, a car dealership, or to MasterCard, your body knows that if you say the wrong thing at work, especially in this day and age, and you get fired, they'll take your house, they'll take your cars, they'll take your transportation, they'll take the food off your table. Your body knows you are in dire straits. It doesn't matter that, hey, no, I got a great interest rate. I got a 2 point whatever on my mortgage. It's cool. Your body knows if you get fired, they take your house. That's new in human history. That's new. And so but that's our norm, right? We don't decide what we do every day. We outsource that to our mortgage company. If you're in an abusive work situation, mortgage company doesn't care. Get your butt in there and work. If you're in a unsafe job, it's about to go away because AI is going to take your job. I don't give a crap. You bought this stuff and you're using it at your house on my credit card. You owe me. Go to work, right? So if your body would be failing you if it let you sleep all night. It would be failing you if it let you have a deep, connected, intimate moment with your spouse. It's not time for sexy time. It's not time for sleep. It's time to not die, right? And that's just one example. So I want folks to sit back and look at what's this world we've been dropped into. Some of us have created our own mess. Some of us were born into it. But all right, what do I have to do to show my body we're all right now. We're all right.
So how do you do that?
I mean, it's kind of like, man, how do you lose weight? Well, diet and exercise. It's very simple and it's very, very hard, right? It took me and my wife 15 years to completely divorce myself from owing people money, whether that was student loans or whether that was a mortgage or whether that was credit card. Like, it took 15 years. That's a long time. And now my kids are growing up in a house that is not riddled with angst 24/7 like I grew up in, right? Or if it is dealing with my physical body, right? I love eating junk food, pathologically so. I eat my feelings, right? Like a good, I was going to say like a good Christian, but I eat my feelings,
Yeah,
right?
I eat when I'm stressed. I eat.
Bro, I can crush some gummy candies when I'm stressed. And
Oh, those licorice with the sour licorice, the sour things.
dude,
Oh my God, I crush those things.
sometimes I just want to hold them next to my face. Right, they're so good, right?
Yeah,
I have to know. Okay,
but you're a skinny guy, so you don't have the
no,
problem.
I just wear big shirts, man.
Okay.
But here's the deal. I know that if I eat that, I don't sleep very well, and I wake up in the morning and I'm a little bit more grumpy than usual, and my kids avoid me a little bit more, so I get a little more pokey and a little, right? It starts a whole cycle. And so then my body starts sounding the alarms. I've got a rejection issue. I'm always worried about people going to reject me. And so then my kids start wanting to stay away because dad's getting a little bit pokey and a little bit annoying and a little bit barky. And then all the alarms start sounding. And I can blame the anxiety. I can blame my kids. Or, dude, I could reverse engineer that and say, hey, if you stop eating trash, you'll sleep a little bit better. And if you sleep a little bit better, you're a little bit more patient of a husband and a dad. And we don't like those. That our culture is not based on that kind of math. Our culture is based on the do whatever you want, whenever you want, right now. And there's either a pill for that or there's somebody to blame for that. And then you can do whatever you want with your life. And I just think we've created a world our bodies aren't designed to live in, man. It's just not real. It's not true.
So in your book, your new book, it came out in October, Building a Non-Anxious Life. Do you go through
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah. So I try to distill it down, like brushing your teeth and put on deodorant, man. What are 6 choices I can make on a daily basis?
So just to go into it a little further. So if I had last night vanilla ice cream, okay, and I shouldn't have it because I'm trying to lose weight, I had it, okay? And by the way, it wasn't a once in a while. Maybe I've had it 3 nights in a row because it's there. My wife got it for the kids' party, and then no one had this container. So every night I find myself putting 3 scoops in this thing, and then putting pancake syrup on it, like, okay, and then the
Jason,
rest of the day I ate great.
Friends, man.
Well, I did that, and so is your argument to say eating that crap makes you feel worse the next day?
I got 2 different arguments. Number one, if you're like me, you have a story attached to that, which is, yeah, you're always going to be an overweight loser. You can't even not eat ice cream, and you're telling your kids to do their homework, and you can't even stop. Like, that's the story that goes off in my head. I don't know if that's in yours, but it's a common story.
So I'm telling my kids to do the homework, and I'm already this overweight loser, and I continue to on that.
So I find myself in the ice cream, and then I start a shame loop for myself. And I wake up the next morning and I feel a little bit bloaty. And dude, this morning, I put on my pants to come to work, and the thought crossed my mind, dang gummit, did somebody shrink my pants? Right? And I thought, oh no, that was me, right? That's me. And I've gotten off the rails the last month. I've been traveling a lot. I've been speaking a lot. And so I've been eating in hotels, and I've been grabbing snack bars and in green rooms, and there's a physiological toll to that. And if I track my sleep at night, my sleep's getting a little crummier and a little crummier, and another hotel and another hotel and another pizza and another steak dinner at 10 o'clock at night. And I wake up a little bit grumpier, and my kids feel that. My wife feels that. And so, yeah, that's my contention is it all works together. And if I really want to be present, I need to get a good night's sleep. And if I want to get a good night's sleep, then for me, and this isn't for everybody, I need to stop eating a couple hours before bedtime. I need to put my phone down an hour or 2 before bedtime. I need to.
No, come on. Do you actually put your phone away an hour or 2 before bedtime?
Most nights, yeah. I have to. And here's the deal. Because what's the alternative? Like for what? What am I going to actually solve? Right? I
You could play a game.
or I could ask my wife how her day was. Right? And what I'm finding across the country is couples are 2 inches apart from each other on the couch, but they're 2,000 miles away from each other. She's on her iPad and you're on your phone, right? And I'm checking ESPN scores and she's looking up, I don't know, recipes or Pinterest stuff or business ideas that she's writing about. Like, and we could be making out, right? We could be planning things. We could be celebrating that we had a good financial month together. We could be talking about what do we want to do after our kids leave, and we're not. We are these digital Xanax, right? They're just digital distraction devices. And so I could be playing a game. You're right. And there's some time to pass. There's some fun to pass the time there. But what I'm finding is that fun, like I'm just passing the time, has become a way of life. And our bodies understand that our marriages are way further apart than we want to believe they are, or that we're lonely, or that we're exhausted, and we need some sleep. And so, yeah, there's some discipline on the front end that ends up becoming a way of life, man. And you just have this wild new thing in your home called peace.
Got it. Okay. I'm gonna go
You
to
don't like?
this one.
Did you not like that one?
No, it's
Or is it just revolutionary?
It's a lot of discipline.
Okay.
It's a lot of discipline. And to put the phone away an hour or two, it's not just work. You may want to play a game on the phone, or and yeah, listen, if you could abide by it and live, I think it's a more peaceful way. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say it's good to be on your phone right before you fall asleep. I haven't heard anyone say that. But
Right.
now you often say you are worth being well. Do you think people lack that basic belief?
I mean, there's no question about it. And I talk to people who've got net worths of that I could never fathom, that have everything. And at the end of the day, they don't think they're worth the work. Or like you're mentioning, if they put that phone down and they look at their spouse, they have to deal with the state of their marriage. And they don't want to do that. They don't have the tools to do that. And so I'm just going to keep working. I'm going to keep making money. I'm going to keep avoiding. I'm going to keep playing a game. Or I'm not worth the work. We aren't worth the work. I don't know how to be a dad. Those are just knuckleheaded teenagers. I don't know how to do that. I think at the end of the day, I'm not worth losing 50 pounds. It's going to suck. It's going to be a pain in the butt. And I don't think at the end of the day, most of us think we're worth it. It's just not worth the effort, man. And we're going to numb just that quiet life of desperation. I'm just going to go live that until my clock's up.
Yeah, sometimes like you feel like I don't deserve this. It's like that imposter syndrome.
But here's all imposter syndrome is the fear that other people are judging you as harshly as you judge yourself. And that is worth being well, right? Like that's being able to look in the mirror and say, nah, I'm worth like figuring out how to have a good day today. I'm worth that. Right.
Yeah. So now I'm going to go micro. I know you said it about the environment. I think a lot of times people have anxiety in the mornings, maybe at night when you go to bed, but in the mornings when you wake up. I know you said about the environment, and I hear that you could Google things and there's things you could do, breathe in 4 seconds. But someone wakes up with anxiety for whatever reasons, things at work, someone did something to someone, someone that you trust lied to you, but you wake up in the morning and that anxiety hits you so hard. It makes your heart beat. You're like thinking, how do I make this anxiety stop? And you don't know, I guess there are pills like Xanax and that could help in the short term. Are there tools that you teach how to handle that besides the environment if you have one of those outbursts? Because I think anxiety can a lot of times lead to depression, which can lead to suicide because you want the pain to go away. And if we look at the
100% that anxiety and depression are on the same trend line. They work recursively together. Yeah, it's like a toggle lever on a mixing board, right? They're on the same line, man. You're exactly right.
So you must have clients that patients or that you've talked to and building for your book Building a Non-Anxious Life that they have these and panic attacks or anxiety where your thing is beating. Like, what do you suggest then? I mean, is it the answer that look at your environment, or
that's more of
things that could do it?
That's more of a long-term look at it. When you catch yourself in the middle of it, if you're married and you got somebody with you, there's something as hard yet as simple as SOS, skin on skin contact. I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to put my foot on your foot under the covers before we get out of bed. and I'm going to hug you before I leave the house. And I need you to put your hand on the back of my neck, and I'm going to put my hand on your cheek, and I'm just going to hold you. And it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. And we're going to sit here for 30 seconds. For sometimes you wake up and I'm by myself and my wife's out of town and my heart's just racing 100 miles an hour. I'm going to sit up and I'm going to pull out a piece of paper before I touch my phone. And I'm going to actually write down, what are you worried about right now? I'm going to write it down. This guy lied to me at work. I got to have this ugly conversation. I'm worried about the climate. The economy's doing this. They didn't lower the rates like they said they were going to. And then I'm going to draw a quick column and say, okay, what about these things can I actually do? And there tends to be a leavening effect in my life. All right, I can have an honest, direct conversation with this one employee at work. I can do nothing about policy right now. I can do nothing about the Fed. I can't do anything about those things. And so I am going to make a choice right now to not carry that thing around all day. And when every time it pops up, I've had seasons in my life, Jason, where I'm walking through the house and my wife will just roll her eyes because I'll say out loud in a firm voice, nope. Because I'm having an imaginary conversation with my boss that I absolutely win every time. I create myself as the hero in this. I'm going to stop having imaginary conversations. I'm going to stop acting like I have any sort of control about what the Fed's doing. I'm going to decide, okay, what can I control in this environment? I'm going to go make that happen. And I'm going to be very intentional about doing it. I might call a friend and say, dude, I am out of my mind zonked today. And we'll have a conversation on the way to work or on the way home from work, right? I'm going to intentionally say, if I pick that phone up, it's just going to pour gasoline on my already accelerated heart rate. I'm not going to pick it up. I'm just not going to pick it up. I'm put it in my bag. I'll look at it when I get to the office. I'm going to go outside and sit on the front porch and just get some sunshine and drink some coffee for a second, for 5 minutes. I'm worth 5 minutes of just, whew, right? I'm going to hold my dog. If all I got's a dog, I'm going to sit there and hold my dog for a minute. And it's a choice to just stop. And most of us don't think we're worth that 5 minutes. We need to go to the next frantic thing. And it's when peace becomes a drug that life gets really good. When you start craving, dude, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go to bed. Or I've been out. It's 10. Last night I left an event a little bit early. I had a great time at the event. I got to meet a lot of neat people. We had a lot of good times. We had a lot of laughs. And then I wanted to go see my kids before they went to bed. And I'm looking for the whole full picture now, right? And so I think there's a lot of things, but it comes down to that. I got to make a choice on several different issues. And if it keeps showing up day after day after day, I'm going to go talk to a professional, man.
When the virtual saying no to the person out loud, is that also saying no to the anxiety or those external pressures, like thinking about that thing in your head that's driving you nuts? Are you out loud saying no to that?
Think of this. All anxiety is a smoke detector in your kitchen. It's a smoke detector. And if you run in there and and pull the batteries out of the smoke detector, yeah, you'll shut the noise off and your house will burn down. The noise, the anxiety is the least important variable in that equation. The more important, yeah, I will say, stop, John. Having this imaginary conversation will solve no things. I feel like I'm dress rehearsing the bad thing. I'm not. I'm fantasizing about how I'm going to win the interaction with my boss. I'll never win that interaction, right? And even if I do win it, I still lose, right? And so, yes, I will make that choice. There are times. So when I would teach people who'd sit with people who'd lost a child, often they will say, I can't get the picture of my kid at the funeral home out of my head. And you can't stop the lightning bolt. That picture just pops in your head. The moment it does, I have a choice on whether I'm going to meditate on it, I'm going to think on it, or I'm going to have another picture of my kid laughing and running through a field, ready to put in its place. And I get to pick one of those things. If your spouse cheats on you, your body, you have that image of them with the other person. From that moment forward, I get to choose. Am I going to meditate on that thing, or am I going to say, nope, I'm not doing that? We have forgiven each other. We've gone to therapy. We're making a new path forward. I'm going to focus on that. I get to choose that thing. And the beautiful thing about the literature is the more I practice that, the more that becomes my default setting, not the negative, ugly thing, but the different term. The different turn becomes the default setting.
So are you a big meditator?
I used to be. I'm not as much anymore. I think meditation's great. I pray more than I meditate, but I think being still sometimes and just asking myself, what am I actually feeling here?
But I feel like it's impossible to shut the brain down in the sense that if you want to sit and quiet, your brain's always thinking about something. Like maybe you could think of the black screen, I guess, the computer screen, but like, I think it's really hard to shut the brain
It
down.
is if you don't have most people who struggle with like a frustration because their brain's always running are people who run so hot from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing that the only time their brain has to process the day is when it hits the pillow. And that's when the machine kicks up. And so, man, I have found it personally and seen it across the country. People who will put 5 minutes on their phone. It sets an alarm and it rings at 10:05. I'm just going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to write down in this little journal that I carry with me everything that I got spinning in my head. Frustrating meetings, a good thing that happened today, what's something I'm grateful for. And I'm going to do it again at 1:30. I'm going to do it again at 4:30. I'm going to do it again at 8:30. And right before I go to bed, I'm going to write down a couple of things that I'm really grateful for today.
So you truly write something down that you're
Think of it
grateful
this way.
for.
I'm going to get it out of my body. Yes. I'm going to get it out of there. And then when you put your head on your pillow, you've been processing and reflecting all day. You've been metabolizing these things all day. And then your brain doesn't have to finally kick it up when it's got its only spare second of processing time. But it's just the same as, man, it's the same as your car. If you just keep your foot on the gas 24/7, 365, you can't get mad when the engine locks up. And we're the same way.
Got it. Now you have a huge social media following. How did that all
I
happen?
don't know, man. I didn't have social media a few years ago. It's
Yeah,
all
so
relatively new. I don't know. Often social media is clips from my show. I have a caller driven show. Like think old Dr. Laura or old Dr. Phil. Like people call in and we figure out how to help them have a better life. We put show clips up, and also I'm just a guy trying to be a better husband and a better dad. And when I make a mistake, I'll write a quick note to myself and post that up. And those have seemed to spin up and create a life of their own.
yeah, I mean, it's you the call in show. How did it happen? You're just like, I'm going to start this thing.
No, I mean, I was working at a university and I was speaking to a group of parents and kids, and Dave Ramsey's executive vice president was in the audience, and she said, "I'm hiring that guy," and they said we're going to spin up a show, and I said, "Okay." I'd never been on the radio or anything like that, and we started letting it rip, and I was co-hosting the Ramsey show too, and then we started sitting with her. I started sitting with hurting people on the air, and it's just taken off and kind of a life of its own.
So do you work with Dave Ramsey's
Yes, sir.
crew?
Yeah.
Got it. I mean, because I've seen your show. People call in about, this person's hooking up this, or you think they're cheating, like, and you're trying to repair the relationship in a call-in thing, and it's tough. Like you have these tough calls that I have listened to, and it's like the new whatever, Dr. Laura, right? In some respect.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, the first 6 months, the show took off so fast. I thought it was because I was so smart, and I thought everyone was really impressed with my big smart answers. And over the last couple of years, I've had a reality check, and people are more interested in seeing what actual compassion looks like in real life, and what sitting with hurting people and sometimes saying nothing for a while, and sometimes saying, yeah, you blew your marriage up and I still like you and I still love you, and let's figure out what the next right move is. In a world that yells at people and points fingers at people, I think the show's an invitation for people to sit down, pull up a seat, and say, all right, let's figure this out. And I don't hate you. I love everybody. I respect everybody that calls the show because they're trying to solve something, right?
I think it was your show. I could be off, doctor. It was lady called in. She was adventurous, let's say, sexually, and her husband wasn't. And so you came up, and this might be all, you came up with an idea about putting things in an envelope, 5 things in an
the
envelope.
erotic envelope system. Yeah.
Yes, that is your That was your creation. You put 5, and you pick. You said one night. One of the things could be like go to a hotel room and do this. I guess this person was into BDSM, and the guy wasn't, and she was the one calling in.
Well,
and it was such an interesting call because I was like, how the heck is he going to deal with this?
Again, most of these things distill down to some of the same challenges, but it's, I want to try this thing in the bedroom and I don't know how to ask you. And so I'm going to spend 2 years hoping you bring it up. I'm going to try to awkwardly kind of hint. And it's always struck me as odd that no, well, number one, my wife says I've been making dinner parties awkward forever because I don't have much of a filter when it comes to asking questions. I'm just interested in people. But I see people all the time. They make humans together. They buy houses together. They bury parents together, and they can't talk about sex in their own house, right? And so it's sometimes something as simple as write down 5 things that you would love to just try, and then your partner write down 5 things, and then once a week y'all just pull one out. And the joke in my house that's not I've told from stage, and so we can tell it here. The first time I came up with this in my own house. And I pulled one up, and it was from my wife, and I was all excited. And it was like French kissing for 20 minutes or something like that. And I looked at her and said, "Are you for real?" And she goes, "Yes. When we were dating in college, we just kissed, and it was awesome." And I was like, man, that's not what I was hoping, right? And it ended up being a magical evening, right? And so it can be as peel the wallpaper off, or it can be as, can we just hold hands and talk about what we miss about each other, right? Intimacy is not just a sex act, right? But again, it's just sometimes we overthink it and we over dramatize it. And my friend, Dr. Lane Norton, when it comes to like nutrition, he says, man, we step over $100 bills to pick up pennies. And I think we do the same thing relationally. We do the same thing financially. It's like, what's this? And what's this? What's this move? And what should I put in what account? And it's like, bro, you still have 3 car payments totaling $2,200 a month. Let's start there, and then we'll figure out what the next investment move is. Similarly, man, let's just write it down on a piece of paper and be willing to have that conversation with each other. Let's figure that out. And some of these other big existential issues tend to work themselves out.
Okay. Okay. Last question, Dr. Delony. You were talking about your partner. If you have anxiety in the morning, like hugged, your feet touch or the neck, what have you. I find sometimes people don't want to talk. They're embarrassed to talk to their partner if they're suffering anxiety or depression. They don't want to burden the partner. What do you suggest in that scenario?
Number one, you used an important word, and Dr. Thomas Joyner out of Florida State, he created a 3-legged stool for suicide assessment, and one of those is perceived burdensomeness. The idea that other people will be better if I just leave them alone. Other people would be better off if I wasn't here. And I think we have created what I call the relational, the outsourced generation, man. We don't ask each other for a ride to the airport. We just Uber. We don't ask each other to borrow a cup of sugar. We just Instacart it. And we've just created this world where we think we're a burden. And so I want to challenge that person to, if you have somebody who loves you and is sharing a bed with you, it would be one of the greatest gifts, one of the greatest honors of their life for you to reach out and say, can you help me? What a gift it is when somebody says, hey, can you help me with this idea I have, or this thought I have, or can you walk me through this thing? We all love that when people reach out to us. And so I would say, don't rob your partner of the opportunity to love you, and say out loud, here's what I'm struggling with. And I think, I don't say 99% of the time, a vast majority of the time, speaking these things out. That's why every major religion for all of human history has a thing called confession. We've turned it into say all the bad things you've done. The original idea was, how are you hurting? And I am acknowledging your hurt together. Like we're acknowledging this together. Let's do that at home. Let's trust each other. And if your partner burns you, well, then you'll have to deal with that part of your relationship, right? If they take that information and hurt you with it. But most people are desperately trying to love each other better, and we hold on to things because we think we're going to burden people. It's just not true.
It's interesting. It's a very good way to put it. I mean, you probably have people that you've met that their family or kids have committed suicide, and the feeling is like if you're not on the planet anymore, then you're not going to be a burden to your family.
Let me tell you how many times I've broken my heart going into. I would go help police officers with suicide and with talking to family members and doing death notifications and things. I did that for a long time. And the number of times I went into a home, especially with a young person, and the young person had gone through such great care to not bother their family in the aftermath of their death. They created a world where the scene would be as sanitized as possible after they had died by suicide. And I just thought, my goodness, if you understood how much that you were loved this much, right? That you went through such pains to make sure the people who found your body wouldn't be burdened. If you could just see that they see you that way too, right? And it was staggering how much it would break my heart. And so if people can drop their shoulders and realize this idea that you're a burden is just simply a lie, it's not true. And that not everybody, but most people have a host of folks who would love to reach in and be of support and help and care if they could. And, but we're all living our quiet lives of desperation, man. And we just wrap ourselves up in our phones and our next Netflix thing, and our coffin is the next social media post. And we just slowly fade off, and we die of diseases of despair and addiction. And we just, we wither away to ash, man. And I just think we're made for more than that. I think we're worth more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, you can see people who are as successful as anyone, have as much money, and, you know, in those moments of despair, you got to get your message out there more to help people.
I'm grateful for your hospitality, brother.
No, I'm glad you're doing this. We'll make clips. This is awesome. Dr. John Delony, building a non-anxious life. Check him out on Instagram, YouTube, 1 million followers on Instagram. Anything that help with mental health and getting it out there publicly is everything. I mean, people just, it's so hidden. It's so hidden. And I mean, when I started Benzinga, which started in my basement, I wake up at 3 a.m. And I had a 3-month-old, and I had as much anxiety as you can imagine with being, if I didn't get help, I don't know if I'd still be here. And we sold the majority interest to private equity a couple of years ago for a decent amount of money. It was CNBC worthy, Squawk Box. So it was a real number.
Awesome.
And when I started this thing, as much anxiety as you can imagine at 4 a.m., you know, and like having the thoughts, hey, if I'm not around anymore, my family won't have to worry about me. And like, that's the stuff that is scary. But when you're feeling that anxiousness, when someone does that next step, it's just to have that, you know, severe anxiousness and depression, and they don't know how to handle
Jason,
it.
if you don't mind, one more minute, I think, and I'm speaking specifically to men here. Most of us, when we get married and then we have our first kid, we don't know how to do that. And it's not so much an excuse, but I didn't know that kids pooped 118 times a day. I thought they just went once like a regular person. So I'd help change a diaper once, and I didn't know all this other stuff was happening. And my wife didn't know that she had to teach me how this stuff goes. And I didn't even know the questions to Google, much less what I didn't know. All I knew is I was failing at this, but I did know I knew how to work. And so I thought the greatest gift I could give my wife, and who was Dr. Delony long before me, she was a professor. I thought the greatest gift I could give her and my new son was to leave them alone. And I thought the greatest gift I could give them was I'll just go work more and provide better. And we ended up 1,000 miles apart from each other. And so I think that my story is your story, is all of our story, which is we don't know what we're doing. We don't have the skills, and we moralize it, and then we feel bad about it. And then we try to solve it in all these other ways. And so, man, if we could exhale and learn to communicate with each other and learn to trust that we have value, we got purpose, man, we can solve any of these issues that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. Where are you based
Nashville.
out of? Where are you doing this? You said Nashville?
Yes, that's home base for me.
Okay, cool.
And Jason, you got my number,
All
man.
right,
You call me anytime. Okay. I appreciate
All
what
right.
you're
This is awesome.
That you're putting this message on.
I mean, no, I'm going to do, now that there's more time here now. We just had the NFL draft was right below our office. We had a huge event here. We had a couple of big events, but mental health and your message and your YouTube call-ins are absolutely awesome. And I hope it brings people like, you know, the 8 or the new number for 911 or 311 for mental health. I don't know how active it's being used. I just don't know. I think your message getting on YouTube clips, people hearing people in similar situations is very powerful.
I'm really grateful for you, man. And you've been a blessing to me today. So thank you.
So yeah, we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much for coming on. And again, this is the Raz Report, Dr. John Delony. Check out Building a Non-Anxious Life. Follow him on Instagram and YouTube, and look forward to hearing more stories and how you can help people with their mental health and relieve them from anxiety. He has tips and tricks and things you should do to improve your environment. I know this. I'm not going to eat ice cream tonight. And before it was because I was trying to stay skinny, or not stay skinny, get skinny, not stay skinny. If I was skinny, then I wouldn't have this conversation. But now what he's talking about is it may change how I wake up in the morning. So we're going to try this experiment tonight. So thank you.
If it goes bad, I'll buy you the next round of ice cream.